Tonight's topic is bad managers, and I've been thinking about this topic for a long time. I don't believe there is such a thing as bad managers, unless you are a complete psychopath, but I don't believe people by default want to do a bad job, whether they are managers, leaders, line employees. Nobody wants to do a bad job. Nobody set out to, okay, let me join this company and do a really bad job. Nobody does that, right? And it's the same applies to, because we need sense of achievement in our lives. So that's how we thrive. Simple as. And sometimes you see these bad behaviors around and we label people, oh, there is a bad manager. And that's not necessarily true. People just don't, managers just under immense pressure. And that pressure is literally just pushing them and pressing them. They are like the pressure cooker sometimes, you know. And all I'm waiting is, I'm like, when is that person going to explode? Because now it's just way too much. The person hasn't slept for days, probably. Having 25 different stakeholders pulling him into 26 different directions, and problems with the staff, managerial, financial, corporate, brand, owners, whatever. So, and then they react due to that pressure. They react, and also they react because out of inexperience. And especially these young generations of managers in the workforce, and I love them dearly. I just love young people. I prefer young people, but we also need to understand them, right? You put these young people into managerial position with great technical skill, but zero people management skill. Okay, and you're gonna end up having problems, and that's why we need older generation who would be there to support them and guide them, and you know, and really just help them out and show them the example of how we manage people. So I have this girl, she asked me last week, that's why it's on my mind still, that hey, she sends me a message, hey, can we have a chat? I really need your advice on something. I don't know how to handle that scenario. I'm like, yes, absolutely. I'm like, let me know, I'm coming, I'm here for you guys. So I go, we have a conversation, a long conversation that transitioned from her being very defensive, rejecting the idea, even the possibility that she could have contributed to that situation that she's facing right now. And so I pushed back and I said, look, we already had 2 different conversations about the feedback I heard, the way you interact with people. So could it be something related to? So we went from that defensive position to, by the end of the conversation, she says, look, if I contributed to this person's state as she is right now, I want to know. I'm open and I want to, you know, rectify the situation. So I'm super, super proud of her, not only for asking for advice and help, but also that she managed to put her guard down and just face the scenario. Like, you can't hide away. Truth always surfaces. And so during this conversation, we talked about a lot of things. She doesn't know how to handle it, or she's going to start crying and I don't know what to do with it. So I just told her, I'm like, look, she's going to start crying. It's not the end of the world. Let people cry. That's good, you know. It's your number 1 built-in pressure release, so we better use it, given by nature. And just sit there and let her cry. There is nothing wrong with it. And then she goes, what if she's not telling me anything? I'm like, then you sit there in silence and you wait until she starts talking. And by doing this, you're going to show her that you really want to get to the bottom of this, what is happening, and help her. So then the conversation went, oh, can you talk to her? And I'm like, look, I can talk to her, but you are the leader of her. You manage her. You need to sort it out. And you don't need a mediator. You don't need a third party. And then we proceeded with the conversation that she started to, bring up theories. Oh, I think I know what's wrong with her with this. I'm like, look, we can sit here until the end of the day and trying to figure out what's wrong with her. But we don't have the answer. We're never going to have the answer. She's got the answer. So you better start talking to her. Anyway, so I sent her a message the next morning, early morning. I'm like, hey, how did it go? And she says, oh, it went really, really well. She did cry, but it was okay. I was okay with it. And I just sat there and we had a very long conversation. And I identified things that I wasn't aware that is pressuring her, areas that she needed help, and all sorts of things, that the misunderstanding between the two of us and whatever. And I'm like, well done. This is what real conversation does, It brings the truth to the surface, and then you can move on with life and sort it out. And then I realized, I'm like, she would be labeled as a bad manager immediately because, she doesn't know. She doesn't have experience managing people. She's 25. At 25, now I tell you what happens in your brain at 25. Your prefrontal cortex, where your executive function lies, it matures and finishes developing by the age of 25, okay? So, what's in your prefrontal cortex, in your executive domain of your brain, the executive functions? You've got decision making, you've got emotional control, you've got temperament control, behavioral control, you've got decision making, you have got the sense of the consequences of your action. This is when you start understanding the consequences of your action. This is when you start being able to control your emotion and then just step back for a little bit. And I thought, and I'm like, oh my God, you literally remind me of my 25 years old self, because I used to be fighting. I just fought for the sake of fight. I went into arguments that today I don't want to get into an argument unless I have to. But today I step away from, a fight or fight. And I find a different way to fight for my rights or for the right of others or the right thing. But that comes with maturity. That comes with age. I cannot tell her to control her emotion. Her brain is not developed completely to do that, to enable her to do that. Now, there are very mature, 25 years old. I'm not generalizing. I'm just trying to understand these young generations, that even biology hasn't given them the tool to be able to control themselves, but we expect them. And I think we should set a very different expectations towards this young generation of managers or young managers, that as opposed to the older one, because they have the benefit of experience and biological maturity. I told her, I'm like, you remind me of myself, but I cannot tell you to be calm. I cannot tell you not to go into confrontation. I cannot tell you not to, to stay quiet, because that will go against your nature. And that's your journey of learning. This is the next phase of your learning. Technically now you're great. You're still going to continue to develop, but your greatest development for the next 15 years is how to be a good leader and how to be a good manager. Because you know what, I spoke to VPs, I spoke to really fantastic leaders, and they tell you, look, I managed people for 15, 20 years. I think I know how to manage them now, after 15, 20 years. And this is just so true. Just because you have the title, you have no idea what to do with it, okay? People management is different. So this is the next phase of learning. Younger generations, put all your energy in how to manage your people and how to manage yourself first, but that will come with age. Don't rush. That's your journey. You have to go through it and just bear the consequences while you're doing it. Enjoy the journey.